Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melanie Ancheta, and thank you once again for taking the time to join us this afternoon for another of our monthly live webinar in joint collaboration with our business partner, HP. Our webinar today is focused mainly on the local government sector. Our speakers today will provide you an overview of the service offerings of HP software, and in particular, the Performance Center of Excellence. I am proud today to be joined by my colleagues, Peter Shave, Global Alliance Director of Testhouse, and two of our colleagues from HP, Rob Stock, an ALM pre-sales consultant, and Kevin Till, account manager. I will quickly go through the agenda for you. For today's webinar, welcome and Testhouse overview will be done by myself and Peter. HP in local government, HP software strategy will be done by Kevin Till, and HP's view on Performance Center of Excellence will be done by Rob, and also a Q&A session afterwards. Before I hand over the floor to Peter, we usually take questions at the end of the presentation through your Q&A pod at the bottom of your screen. I would be grateful if you can hold your questions until then. Thank you. Without further delay, I now pass you over to my colleague, Peter Shave. Peter?
Thank you, Mel. The most interesting part of this presentation will come from the HP guys, but before we do that, I thought I'd just give you a little overview of Testhouse, who we are, what we do, and why we are so closely associated with HP. Our company was formed in 2000 with a focus purely on IT risk mitigation. We don't write software, and we don't get involved in any other kind of consultancy. So it's a very narrow niche, but it's a very deep one. So everything we do is around performance, functionality, and security testing of applications. We're headquartered in London, and we have additional full-service centers in Madrid, Dubai, and Trivandrum in India. We also have overseas sales operations in the United States and throughout the Middle East. We've been partners now with HP for over 10 years, originally with Mercury before the takeover, and with HP software since 2006. We achieved gold partner status in 2009, and when we first started, our initial strapline was that we were the independent experts in software testing. However, we realized that over 90% of the engagements where tools were involved, we were actually using HP tools, so therefore perhaps we weren't quite as independent as we thought we were. So our strapline these days is IT risk reduction through best practice, and that best practice will be demonstrated by my colleagues at HP as the presentation continues. So it's my pleasure now to hand over to Kevin, and thank you for your attention.
Hello everybody, and thanks Peter. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kevin Till. I'm part of the public sector sales team in HP. So I sit in the software group, and more precisely I'm in the IT performance suite group, and that includes the application and the operational management solutions. I'm sure you're probably aware that we've got two other groups within HP software, one looking at information management and the other at security. So I'm going to give you a little bit of context today, and then my colleague Rob Stock will talk about his view of best practice application testing and Centre of Excellence approach, and how that can help release capacity for use in further innovation. So a brief bit of context on HP in HP's presence in local government. As you can see there, we're in our technology is in well over half of authorities already, and approximately 1/3 of those in total use HP software directly. And on the slide you can see some of the brands that we are probably better well known for. HP software in its own right is the 5th or 6th biggest software company in the world, depending on which analyst view you take. We have approximately 3 billion turnover per annum. And so you have some stats on there, but beyond those authorities that use us directly, then many authorities consume services built on HP software, and the slide shows some of the service providers who use HP software in their service delivery strategy. More recently, via our services division, the former EDS Corporation, we're also one of the 3 Desktop 21 providers, and our Workplace 360G offering is, as you would imagine, built entirely on HP software. And lastly, you may have read late last year that we've just bought the information management giant Autonomy, and in reality we're only just beginning to understand the potential in local government. So that's a bit of context on us. In terms of the IT Performance Suite, then the themes of this event were around releasing capacity and best practice in application testing, and this slide shows the dynamics of why both are important. We all know the world's changing, and from an IT perspective it's become more mobile, more connected, more collaborative and more dynamic. And it's a horrible phrase, but these so-called mega trends are determining our IT priorities. And IT is now focusing on creating new infrastructure and new applications that enable business growth and deliver efficiencies under these new, more agile conditions. So this is in effect why HP has coined the term the instant on enterprise, and we believe all enterprises need to use technology to integrate and automate the IT value chain so we can adapt easily and innovate more rapidly. And this is entirely true in the local government space. We've seen new collaborative business models emerging with joint ventures and shared services. We've seen software as a service rising from a supplier's point of view. We've seen fundamental shifts in technology. We've seen mobility driving device spread and increasing accessibility and security demands. And we've also seen changing IT consumption. So I'm sure you've all seen and have been asked for new citizen channels and the pressure around social media bringing a new way of looking at service delivery. So all of this is driving new demand and new delivery models, and as such we're seeing the shift from capacity or capital being spent on operations and more towards innovation these days. So part of this new drive to switch the 70-30 operate to innovate ratio on its head, HP's developed an integrated software portfolio that helps organizations firstly align their business and IT priorities to execute in a more strategic manner. Secondly, to build, operate, store and secure more efficiently. And lastly, to underpin all this with an automated and collaborative approach. So this approach not only enables organizations just to improve their own operations, but more and more we're enabling organizations to create shared services and service to provider type models where one lead organization is now offering service to many. One of these areas that we're looking at in terms of collaboration is definitely around the application lifecycle management piece. And this is where the Centre of Excellence approach comes to play. And with that, I'd like to pass over to my colleague Rob, who can explain a little bit more about the Performance Centre of Excellence.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. So my name is Rob Stock. I work for HP Software and focus on our application testing portfolio. So first of all, today, I just want to give you an overview of what we're doing. So if we look at what we call the complete application lifecycle, for a good number of years people have talked about the software development lifecycle and how that fits in, but we believe that there's more to it than that. It's about integrating with your strategy partners, the people deciding which way to move the organization, and through to the operations too. So it's important that the application lifecycle begins when a business decision is made, and as a result of that business decision, we need an application to support it. Now, today we're obviously talking about performance testing, but it's been talked about just previously. We're involved in functionality testing, performance testing, and security testing, and these things are important to link into each side on the development piece also. So if we just move deep, bit down to the testing products, what we're doing, obviously we're looking after applications such as Quality Center on the functionality side, Performance Center, Load Runner, and security testing software too, to enable people really to understand what's right and what's wrong with their applications long before they ever go live. Now, so talking about performance testing specifically, what's it all about? Well, in a nutshell, it's really about making sure your application performs in line with whatever the business case says that it needs to do. If you're putting applications out there and services out there, you want to make sure that they are actually fulfilling the demand that is required of them. Now, if you go back kind of 10, 15 years or so, developers would say, well, performance testing is not really our concern. We're here managing and making sure the application functions correctly. Performance is really down to the guys in operation, and put a bigger server on there to make it fulfill demand. But what's happened now is that people have realised that performance testing is something that needs to be taken seriously, and we need to have mechanisms and controls in place to manage the particular demands. Now, as performance testing has evolved over the years, it tends to have been through a project-by-project base, so that a project starts off and performance testing is initiated for that particular project, and then another project starts off and, oh, by the way, we need some performance testing there. And it's about replicating different, or should I say replicating the same environments many times across multiple different projects. So the issues with that is that, the world moves on, things change, applications change, new strategies come in, new technologies, etc., which need to be developed. So there's a steep learning curve for people trying to deliver these services, and there's all sorts of different pressures put on to delivering all the different required response times, etc., which need to come through for the application. So what people have been tending to do is to take away that project base and to centralize resources rather than doing it individually and replicating those things. It's about bringing them together and thus creating what's called a center of excellence. So a center of excellence is really about bringing your expertise in terms of people, in terms of technologies together into one logical or physical group. Now, it's easy to think when you think of organizations around the world, you might have testing here in the UK, you might have testing in the United States, in India, wherever it may well be. But it's not really just oceans that separate these teams. Certainly a lot of customers that I've worked with, different testing teams can be separated by coffee machines, either side of a hallway on the same floor. And people don't necessarily know what other teams do and, what they're doing. But what we're doing here is leveraging those skills, the expertise, the hardware, all into one place to actually promote better performance. Now, VOC, which is a research group, they did a study on performance center of excellence, what it actually means, and people's different responses. And by far the overriding benefit, once people have put these things into place, what they were getting out of it was better performance for different applications which they're testing, which is, clearly a good thing.
Hi, Rob. I've just got one question. Sorry about that. I've just got a question with that slide, a quote from There's Alanovitz. It's coming from Mark. He's asking, how long does it tend to take people to move from a project-by-project approach to a CoE?
Well, I suppose there's two parts to that, really. The first part is developing or getting buy-in to someone to say, yes, this is the way we've got to go. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But once that buy-in's in place, it tends to happen quite quickly, actually, because certainly a lot of people that we've worked with and through various different research that's come out, we're probably talking about 3 to 6 months, generally speaking, for people to make that transition. So once it's decided, and organisations can see the benefit, then it tends to happen quite quickly. And certainly, once people start testing like that, I think the benefits, the cost savings, the performance of the different applications, etc., really comes through, and it tends to snowball almost. Certainly, that's my experience anyway.
Great, thank you, Rob.
So just to expand those benefits, really, obviously increasing performance of an application, that's an important thing. And that's obviously the whole reason you do performance testing in the first place. But the people that we've spoken to that have gone this way, the types of things that after they've achieved them, asking them what they actually got out of it, they've found all sorts of different paybacks coming. So, one of the big ones there, centralized performance best practices. It's about leveraging skills of different people, so different people can, throw ideas around. So there's a lot more capacity in these things rather than doing it project by project based. They also tend to find that they get far more performance tests done within a centralized platform, because there's more capacity there for testing in the first place. Some of the other things that people report, obviously quality and efficiency. Efficiency in terms of reducing hardware that's required to support this. About the life cycle kind of citizenry, as it's called, which is really, like I say, which is about letting people blend their different skills, and which really is quite critical to ongoing success. So each team member can bring a unique experience with them, which they can play off, and skills and motivation tend to increase dramatically. And another important thing which comes across is the visibility. Once these things are in place, more people tend to come. Somebody said to me, it's like Field of Dreams. You build it and people will come, so that people that weren't performance testing before can now leverage these services a lot more easily, rather than having to invest in their own, like I say, project by project base. So this kind of really ties into the HP quality model. This has been around for a good number of years, and it's really kind of describing the different stages that organisations go through. So, on the left-hand side, we've got quality agnostic. This is no documented QA processes of any sort, performance, functionality, etc. Very, very manual based, all the way through to a full centre of excellence approach. And at that kind of level, people are deploying centre of excellences, but also offering services to partners, other organisations, etc. And these are the kind of rough steps which people go through to increase testing maturity. So this is really, like a lot of things, all about people, processes, and technology. So, people, we're bringing multiple groups together, across business, development, QA, etc., and educating and empowering people, so that this isn't just a technical thing. It's part of the business, and it's something which helps promote those business initiatives, whatever they may well be, that require the applications on top of them. And so in terms of, the processes, quality is built in, which is, something which is, from the flip side, whereas, quality is kind of bolted on. This is really about understanding, those issues in development. I mean, it's been said a good many years that, a defect of any sort found in development and QA is 100 times cheaper to fix than one when it goes forward into production. And deploying those best practices and understanding the different requirements and the different requirements of the different applications that you need to roll out. And then in terms of technology, it's really about having a centralized platform and solution. We talked about our performance center capabilities, managing multiple technologies, multiple platforms, all those, whether it's mobile testing, whether it's testing in the cloud, whether it's just, general web applications, AJAX applications, whatever they might well be, and whatever you may well want to deploy going forward. And, given the ability to communicate and collaborate too, if you've got teams, a centre of excellence doesn't have to be one physical group of people. It could be dispersed across different locations. It could be a physical group. But nonetheless, it gives them the ability, the tools give them the ability to understand what's going on, shared analysis, and understand, scheduling of these things, because there is 24 hours in a day to run tests. These things can be managed a lot easier with a single platform. So just to put some kind of view on this, what we did a good number of customers of ours that have moved from a project-by-project performance testing approach, who have gone towards a centre of excellence. We kind of did a number of interviews with customers and asked them what, how they did it, what they saw as the key kind of milestones along the way to achieve this. And this is taken from one particular customer, but I think the responses are quite typical across the board. So they kind of identified the first thing was to establish buy-in. It's obviously an important thing from the beginning, but obviously IT buy-in, but also business buy-in too, and talk about the benefits that both IT and both business are going to get out of it. So on the one IT side, I mean, it's obvious you're going to reduce help desk calls and all those types of things. But from the business side, they're able to deploy applications a lot more quickly than they were previously. And then moving on from that, it was about collaborating with the line of business. So maintaining the business focus as they're pushing this through. They saw it as absolutely critical to move this away from being just a purely IT benefit to a full business benefit, and identifying the return on investment. So return on investment is certainly something that we've helped a good number of customers with too, to understand what they are likely to get in terms of payback and what they're going to get having made this move. So a lot of the stuff that we've done helps to feed into a good business case, which is obviously critical going forward. Then the next thing that this customer identified was they found it hugely important to fit it with their particular organisation. So it's fine talking about a centre of excellence, and a centre of excellence looks like this, but obviously a centre of excellence is different for different people. I mean, the concepts are the same, but it needs to work with your organisation. It's certainly not a one-size-fits-all. So they were really about identifying the skills that they needed, assessing their particular needs, and articulating the requirements and the success criteria of this centre of excellence for them going forward. So how will they know going forward that this centre of excellence actually has provided payback? So then it was on to managing the particular skills that they want, acquiring those skills. And, one of the things that they said was that, you shouldn't be afraid to look for skills outside of your organisation. This particular customer was using partners and contractors too to help them get this set up, and they saw that was for them, their particular need was a real benefit in getting this off the ground. Then it was about focusing on customer satisfaction. Now, for them, customer satisfaction, their customers, were a range of, customers, users, whatever they were, but also the business there. So they really wanted to understand the goal for each particular application. Obviously, every application is different, and, you want to performance test it in line with what the business requirements want. And the business was certainly a customer of theirs. So improvement, and understanding improvements going forward. So what can they do at every turn? They can now assess how a particular application was deployed, how it's developed, etc., and how they can improve processes going forward. And they saw that as a continual thing, as something which they're carrying on doing. And once they'd done that, another thing which they saw as absolutely critical was proving the results. So they'd set the criteria that the Centre of Excellence will need to do this, and showing the value, improving the efficiency. And once they got that, it was quite easy to promote those results back to the business. And like I say, this field of dream things, build it, and they'll come. This was kind of critical to it taking off, from a relatively small initial setup to something which is expanding all the time, and something which is touching on two projects that would never have performance tested in the first place, because these things are available to all. And then one of the other big things that they saw is motivation of staff. Staff were, having working in the Centre of Excellence, and they were far more motivated in terms of what they're able to achieve, far more motivated in terms of their skills developed, etc., which was a critical thing to the success of their projects. So just to wrap up, really, why HP? Well, HP, as was said at the beginning, we purchased Mercury back in 2006. We've got a long history of expertise and best practices, lots of different flexible deployment models, how you can manage these things, how they can be hosted. With a lot of customers we talk, they want to host their own Centre of Excellences, or other people, we host them for them. Some people we host them for them, and they pass the services on to other people. Obviously, we're the market leaders and solutions with solutions to support all sorts of different organisations, different sizes and shapes, and products for, like I say, the complete application lifecycle. So from the initial business idea all the way through to deployment and operation and background for development again. So with that, I'll pass over to Mel for questions.
Marvelous. Thank you, Rob, Kevin, and Peter for that excellent presentations. Once again, we are now taking questions. Please do type your questions on your question pod at the bottom of your screen. We'll take a few, and if we do run out of time, then we'll just take some of them offline. So please do type in any questions that you might have for either Kevin, Rob, or Peter. Okay, I've got couple of questions here. I've got one from Steve. How do organizations typically fund a CoE? Is it generally project funded? Either Rob or Kevin, maybe?
Yeah, I can take that. Project funding it's really depending on your organisation. So some people take it as part of the annual IT budget. I think most organisations do it that way. Some people do chargeback, so they can set this thing up and they can charge individual projects to use them, to fund them that way. Or I guess the other major chunk is project-based funding. So different projects, the money's pulled together. But certainly the vast majority. Certainly going forward, see it as a critical part and part of the IT budget.
Marvelous. Thank you, Rob. I've got one from Richard. Question from Richard is, can CoE work with COTs, e.g. SAP applications, and in-house develop applications simultaneously? Kevin, maybe for you?
Thanks, Mel. Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely, I'd say so, and Rob can probably validate this, but with the Centre of Excellence, you're setting up, the infrastructure and the tooling to test all applications, and of course, different things like SAP and Oracle may need different types of testing and different types of protocol, and I know some of the vendors offer their own solutions, but yeah, definitely the HP solution can cover all sorts of protocols and cover all sorts of technologies. So you're just going to build up a test pool, a test resource, shared scripts, shared artifacts, etc., that can be used across all different platforms. So I don't know, Rob, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, it kind of made me think of a customer I was talking to a couple of weeks ago. They were saying, on a project-by-project basis, a few years back, they were deploying SAP applications, and they probably had about 4 or 5 different teams, different, autonomous teams, deploying different aspects of this SAP application. Bringing all the testers together into one place, one logical team. They found that they can test, whereas before you'd had one project team focus on a particular area, another one focus on another area. They found that, the ability to widen out testing for SAP and whatever else that they were doing was much enhanced because, there is a lot more capacity in there rather than testers, testing their 9-to-5 jobs or whatever they're doing. Now you can schedule tests a lot more easily. You can manage tests. It's like picking your slot within the calendar. So whenever a test can run at any time of the day, a lot easier to deploy. So yeah, in answer.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Rob. I think I've got one more question from John. John's question is, what sort of ROI would be expected from moving to a CoE? Shall I ask Rob for that?
Yeah, you can do. Well, like I say, we have worked with a good many organisations of all sorts of different sorts and types about establishing ROI models, beforehand. So we work with various different industry players, but particularly people like ITC. So establishing ROI in the past has been kind of, you get the feeling of bussing in a coachload of consultants and they run around your organisation for 3 months or so. But what we get, working with IDC, it enables us to benchmark organisations a lot easier by understanding, which sector they're in, what the organisation does, where they're based, etc., etc. So it enables us to do it a lot more quickly and get results a lot easier. Now obviously every organisation is different in terms of what an ROI may well be. But it does tend to be moving from a project-by-project basis. I mean, certainly the benefits of any performance testing is far better than none at all. But to centralise those things, one organisation I was working with, we'd calculated it based on this IDC metrics, etc., to be around 400%. This was a year or so ago. Before they moved to the actual deployment model. And some, there were people who weren't sure that, necessarily that was going to be achievable. But certainly after they deployed it and we revisited them again, sure enough, that they are achieving figures of about 400% ROI, and that's within a year, which is quite incredible, really. But nonetheless, to save on the hardware, save on different licensing costs, save on staff motivation and all those types of things. Yeah, so it's quite high, really.
Okay, thank you, Rob. I think that's the questions for today. Again, thank you guys for taking time and of your time to join us for this webinar. The recording will be available by latest Friday this week, hopefully. Before we go, if you do have any further questions regarding our webinar today, please do give us a call. Our details are on the slides. And thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.